Hello and welcome to this Google Classroom tutorial video hosted by Adam Pearce of Strawberry 7. In the video today, I'm going to be showing you the basics of creating a class in Google Classroom, the options that you can set, and we'll have a little look at how you can assign work and what you can do with the students in that class as well. So let's start by opening a browser. We'd recommend using Google Chrome, and then you want to go to classroom.google.com. That will take you to your Google Classroom interface. Any classes which you've already created or become a member of will be shown here, or you may just have a blank page. To create your first class, click plus in the top right corner here and go down to Create Class. This will show you a box which will allow you to enter in information about your class. Class name is actually the only thing that's required here, so I'm just going to create 7.2 English. I would also recommend that you pop your name into the class name as well, because this will just make it easier for your students to find when they're looking at their various classes to make sure that they've got the right teacher. Section is just something that allows you to break the classes down into areas if you've got quite a lot of classes. Subject is the subject that the class will be about. In this case, it will be English. And you may wish to enter a room that this class is taught in as well. So I'm just going to leave this information as it is here, and then I'm going to click Create. And what that will do is that will create your class, and it will give it some default kind of options, including a header and things like that. And what we're going to do is once we get into the class, we're going to look through all of those different parts, and I'm going to give you some recommendations of things that I would change. So here we are in the class. As you can see, we've got the class name here. We've got a class code just below the name. Now this code is a code which you can give out to your students if you wish them to add themselves to the class or request access to the class. So this is very useful if you're actually in a classroom in school and you're wishing to create a class very quickly. All of your students are using devices such as Chromebooks, and you want them to just join that class very, very quickly. There's also, to support that, a display icon just here so that you can display it in large text, so you could display it on your interactive whiteboard, for example, so all of the students could see it a bit easier. We're not really going to be using this. I'm going to show you how to actually invite students manually as a teacher, because this class is kind of set up as a class that we're going to be using throughout the year. Below that, we've got a Meet link, and this is particularly useful because what you can do is click here to generate a Meet link, and this will be a link that your students and you can use anytime to go into a Google Meet. So that's particularly relevant at the moment because we're doing a lot of remote learning due to the COVID crisis, and that will allow you to dip in and out of meetings with your students. So I'm just going to show you how to turn that on. So we're going to click Generate Meet Link, which will put the link just here. And I'm going to say that it is visible to the students, and I'm going to click Save. Now, the advantage of this link here is that students cannot join a meeting unless you're present. And also when you leave, they will automatically be taken off of that meeting as well. So that's a very useful feature because there's a lot of concern at the moment around meetings that teachers are setting up and students joining them beforehand, and whether there's a bit of safeguarding issue there. This code will be a much safer way of your students going in and out of meetings. And what we'd recommend to organise your students going in and out of those meetings is to use the stream, which is the area that we're in at the moment. And the stream is basically like a social media feed. That's probably the easiest way of thinking about it. So this is all in chronological order automatically, and these are just notes that you could write to your class. So for example, I might say, dear students, we have a meeting on Thursday at 3 p.m. Please use the Google Meet link above. And I can control which class that's going to. Obviously, I'm going to do it just to this class. We can control how many students that's going to go to. I'm going to set it to all students for now, and we could post that, and then all of the students would see this notification here, and they would see that they have to join that Google Meet at Thursday at 3 p.m. and that notification should go through to their email, and it will be on their Classroom notifications when they go into Google Classroom as well. You can post other things on the stream, and some things get automatically posted on the stream, such as when you post new assignments and new work, and we're going to look at that in just a second. The last thing that I wanted to show you on this section was the theme, or the banner at the top here. One of these is generated automatically, and Google is quite clever because if you type in English as the class name or English as the subject, it will pick a English orientated theme. So it's quite clever because it gives you that automatically. I would recommend that you do pick a theme that you want. So they have given you some different sort of core subjects here that you can pick different themes on. So it's just a simple case of going in, clicking select theme, and that will change the theme at the top here. You can also upload your own photo, and if you've got a nice photo to use, such as a photo of your class, that's a really nice thing to do, to be able to upload your photo there, and you just pick it off of your computer as you would do in the normal way. So we've had a really good look at the Stream tab here. We've had a look at the various options that we can set here. Now the next option is Classwork, but I'm just going to skip that just for a second and go to People, and you'll see why. Because People is where we manage the membership of this class, and at the moment we have no students. So before we start setting up our Classwork, we actually want to make sure that we've got everybody that needs to be in this class first. Now, you've been added automatically. In this case, I'm logged in as the admin, so you will be automatically added to this class, obviously, because you've created it and you'll be the owner. You may want to add some of your colleagues into this class, though, so that they can access this class, because you may work with them. So I'm going to add a couple of people that are in the English department of this particular demo class. I'm very fortunate to have some very gifted teachers here to teach English to these very lucky students. So we can invite them, and that will basically just send an invitation to those teachers' email addresses, and the next time they log into Google Classroom, they will also see those classes and they'll be able to join them from there as well. For the students, we can invite students manually, so we can just type in a first letter of their name, for example, and it will come up with all of the students that we can add, and we could click on one of those students and we could add them in one by one. A better way is to add them as a group at a time. Now this will be dependent on what your IT department has set up within Google Classroom, whether they've set these groups up for you. But if you're one of our customers, then you can email support@strawberry7.com if there's a group missing, and we'll take care of that for you. Or if you're unsure, speak to your IT support, or if your IT support is unable to help you or you don't have IT support, then our contact details are in the description below, and we'll be more than happy to help you with setting this up and getting you in the right area to be able to add these students as groups. So I'm going to add the entire Year 7 group now, just by typing in Year 7 and clicking invite, and you'll see that all of the students in Year 7 automatically go into here, and they're shown as invited, as the teachers are, until the student actually goes in and clicks accept on the invite or join class. Then these will remain greyed out. I'm just going to show you one more thing whilst we're in this section, which is how to remove people. So if you want to remove a teacher, then you just click the dots to the right of the teacher and click remove. If you want to remove a student, you just tick them. You can tick multiple ones, or you can just tick one, and then you click actions, remove. So now I'm going to go to Classwork, and I'm going to show you how to actually create an assignment, and this is the place that you're going to spend most of your time in Google Classroom. So when we go on to create, we have various options here. We've got an assignment, which is probably most of the time what you're going to create. This is an actual piece of work and a task that you're giving to the students. You've got a quiz assignment, which is the same as the assignment, only it's specifically for a quiz, and it will automatically put a quiz in. We've got a question, which is just a question that you will ask the students and they can answer directly on Google Classroom. You've got a material resource, and this is just a resource that the students can actually view and they can reference. There's not actually an assignment or a piece of work for them to complete, it's just something that they can reference. And then we've got reuse post, which is a system that allows you to reuse a previous assignment that you've created in another class. So I'm going to start with assignment, and we'll run through this. This is probably the most in-depth area that you're going to do a assignment on, and I'm going to take you through some basics, and I'm also going to show you some best practice in here of things that we would recommend. So once you go in to create an assignment, you need to give it a title. So I'm going to give it a title here. Okay. Then we're going to give some instructions to the students. It's very important when you give the instructions to the students that it's not just instructions on how to complete the essay fundamentally, but it's also instructions on what to actually do when they're in Google Classroom. So I'll give you an example of some instructions that I would write out, and then you'll see how those are relevant as we start to add the documents in. So I would say, please read the text and remember to include references to chapter 3. Maybe that's what we're studying specifically. And then I would say, please click on the document on the right and complete your work. Now that's because what we're going to do is we're going to give the students a Google Docs that they can fill in. This is definitely the easiest way to do things within Google Classroom when you're creating an assignment, is to use a Google supported format such as Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and to create a copy for each student. In most cases that's the best thing to do. So in this case I haven't already created the document. I'm going to create it now, and I'm just going to click Create Docs. It will create a document. It will then take me to that document, and then we can put whatever we want to put onto this document to get the students started. So an example might be the title of the essay that we're doing. So we might just put Review of Chapter 3. Or we might put a particular question that we put in this essay. How did chapter 3 affect the rest of the novel, for example? So we can set our various options for that. We can make it bold, we can make it a little bit bigger, and we can use that to get the students started. Then we'll go here, we'll set this back to whatever typeface size we want. We don't want it to be bold. And now the students are ready to go. We can put some instructions here to say, for example, type your essay here. But it's up to you as to whether you think that you want to sort of include those further notes for the students. It will automatically give it a title, so that will be usually the title of the essay that you've written here. Review of Chapter 3 is fine for me. I'm going to leave that as it is. And we're just going to leave this document as it is. It's all saved. We don't need to particularly save anything or do anything. We just close that tab. Okay, so we've got a document here. It's still called Untitled Document, but that's fine. Don't worry, it's just because it hasn't refreshed yet. And over on the right here, we have some various options. We can leave it with the default, which is students can view the file, they can edit it, or this is the one that we're actually going to want, which is make a copy for each student. And this is what you're going to use in most cases, because this will allow the student to go in, and when they click on the document, they will get their own copy. And when they get their own copy, it will give it the title that we've given it already, which is Review of Chapter 3, and it will automatically put their name onto the name of the document as well. So it does that all automatically, and that makes it a really smooth process for the students and also for you when you come to mark the work as well. If you had a document that you'd already created and you wanted to add it, that's absolutely fine. You'd just go Add, and you would either upload the document if it's on your computer by clicking File, or you would go to Google Drive and you would then find the document wherever you've created it and wherever you've saved it. So it might be in your My Google Drive, it might be in shared drives if you have shared department drives that you've created. And bear in mind that if you're planning ahead, you can create a document and then you can put it in your shared drive, and then many of your colleagues will be able to access that document as well. So you really start to see how powerful Google Classroom is with saving you time. You can create some of these things ahead of time, you can share them out to your colleagues if you put them in a shared area, and then you can all kind of use those documents and you can all work on those documents. It becomes a really smooth, easy process for you to all do. So now that we've figured out how we're sort of creating the assignment, how we're attaching the work, let's have a look over on the right hand side here. So this is for, who is this assignment going to go to? By default, it goes to the class that you are in, but you can set it to go to more than one class if you want to. So if this assignment was relevant for 7.2 English and relevant for 7.1 English, we can select both of those classes, and that assignment will go to both of those classes. I'm going to leave it just as this class for now. Equally, we can set whether it goes to all students or whether it goes to individual students. I can't select individual students at the moment because those students that I invited earlier haven't actually accepted the invitation. Only accepted students and students which are actually a member of the class will be available here, but you'll just be able to tick them and untick them as you see fit. The next area is points, and you can assign a point value to this essay, or you can leave it as unmarked. Now, there is something very important to understand here, which is a current kind of idiosyncrasy within Google Classroom at the moment, which is if you assign a points value to this piece of work and then you don't give it a points assignment when your students have handed it in, after a time the work will show as missing. Now this can be quite confusing, and it will be better if Google at some point changes this to unmarked or ungraded or something rather than missing. We've had some instances at other schools where teachers have found it a bit confusing that it says missing because they think that it's the work that's missing, and the students have thought the same thing. So unless you're really specifically going to give this a points value, we'd always recommend that you set this as unmarked. And for things like essays, it's probably better that this is set unmarked, and then what you can do is just provide comments on the essay when you feed it back rather than specific points values. Next, we have a due date, and we can set a due date as to a deadline as to when this work is due in. So I'm going to set it for Monday the 20th, and you can set a time as well. Again, we've had feedback from students that when the time is set as 23:59, they're a little bit confused. They think they have to actually turn it in at that time. So you might want to set a more meaningful time, such as 10 in the morning or at the end of school. If you're setting it to the end of the day, we might set it to 1500. The next item is topic, and topic will just organise your assignments a little bit easier when they come to view them. So I would recommend that you do use topic. I would probably set the topic to English, or if we're specifically in an English class, we might want to set it to kill a mockingbird, for example, because we're studying that particular book and we might be doing a few essays on that book. The next item down here is around originality reports. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about that unless your school is specifically using that, in which case you should receive some instructions from your IT department around how to use that. But originality reports is basically an anti-plagiarism system. So if you are familiar with Turnitin at university, that's a similar system here. The last part is the assignment part up here. If you've done your assignment and you're ready to give it out to your students immediately, you can just click Assign. Or a very powerful feature is by clicking the arrow here and scheduling an assignment. So this is really useful when you're in your training time and you're in your PPA time to be able to schedule your assignments. You can kind of create a whole load of work for the whole week for your class, and then you can schedule it for release at certain times. So I might be doing this today on Sunday, but I want to schedule it for Monday and I want it to release at 9 o'clock in the morning. Whoops. and we can go schedule. That will then schedule that assignment, and then that will release at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can see it's scheduled for release tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. If we want to go back in and edit that assignment and do something before it's released, it's no problem at all. We just click the dots here and we click edit, and that will take us in, and we'll be able to change anything within that assignment that we want to. And then we just hit schedule again once we're done, and that will schedule that again for the same time. So we've had a really good look at assignments. Let's have a little look at quiz assignments now. So we'll go create quiz assignment. And quiz assignments are great if you just have a quick quiz that you want to send out to your students. So again, I'll just put a title in here, and we'll provide some instructions. So we might just say fill out the quiz. And we've got a blank quiz which has been created for us here automatically. So what we'll do is we'll just click into that, and we'll have a little look at what that quiz looks like. So there's a whole load of options here that we can fill out on this quiz. Now, to be honest, Google Forms and Google Quizzes are so in-depth with so many different options. We'd recommend that you check out our other video, which is in the top right here, which is about Google Forms and Quizzes, everything you needed to know but were too afraid to ask. And that will tell you everything that you need to know about how to create a quiz, what it looks like when you get responses back, and how to edit some of the settings in here. There's also some information in that video about some of the strange bugs which are present in Google at the moment and how to get around those. So we definitely recommend checking that video out. Once your quiz is set up the way that you want, you have an option here for locked mode in Chromebooks. Now you can click this I to give you some more information about it, but basically if your students are using Chromebooks, this only works on Chromebooks, then you can click this button, and what it will do is it will put them in basically like exam mode. So when they start this quiz, they won't be able to go off to Google, for example, and look for the answers. So that can be really useful if this quiz is kind of an exam-based quiz. Over on the right here, we have the same options that we saw in the assignment area, really. We've got the classes that we can assign to, the students, whether we give it a points value. Again, we would probably recommend that you don't assign a points value here, that you set it as unmarked. Again, unless you're really specifically going to go in and assign points. And when you watch if you've watched the Google Forms and Quizzes video, you'll see that there's a section where you can assign points to individual questions as well, so it's probably better to do it there. Otherwise you will encounter that odd missing sort of scenario that we talked about in the assignment section. Due date is exactly the same. We can just set a due date as to when we want this to be handed in by. And we've got topic, which is the same. We might want to add it to the To Kill a Mockingbird topic, and that will sort of order it under the same place. And we've got originality reports there, as I explained in the assignment section. That will be the same options around anti-plagiarism, and you can see the same kind of assignment options here, whether we assign it or we schedule it to the students. So I'm going to assign this one straight out to the students, and that will take us back to the area, and you can see it's under the To Kill a Mockingbird section here, and you can see how it's not grey, it's actually got a colour to it, and that's because it's actually assigned and given out, and we've got our due date just here. So we'll just briefly go over the other two here, question and material. So question is just a general question. How do you feel about To Kill a Mockingbird? And you can just fill out your any further instructions that you want there, whether you want a short answer or whether you want multiple choice answers. So you could change this to multiple choice, and you could just select your answers in here that you want the students to select from, or short answer will just allow them to give a short answer. You can select the normal kind of options up here. Again, we'll probably set this as unmarked, but you have a couple more options down here, which is just around whether your students can reply to each other, which you may want to turn off because they might start kind of a lot of interaction to each other and fill up the question with some unnecessary sort of answers. And whether they can edit their answer as well. So again, you can just select those as you want to select them. You've got the same options up here for whether you ask it now or schedule it, and I'm going to ask it straight away. So we've got our question posted here, and we can just view the question, and that's what it will look like to the students. They'll just be able to answer in here and post an answer. So let's go back to our class, and the last thing we're going to have a look at is the material. And like I said earlier, this is just a resource, so the students can't do anything with this. They can only view it, and they can only have a look at it just here. But we could say a useful video on how to hand in your work. So you might actually want to post a material that's not necessarily curriculum sort of based resource. It's actually a resource on how to use Google Classroom. So you might want to do that initially if your students are new to Google Classroom, and just post a video, for example, showing them how to hand in their work. And that would be a YouTube video, and we actually have a video on that. So Google Classroom hand in work might come up. Let me see if we can find it. If you have a video that you've already got the address of, the URL of, then you can also just go URL and you can paste that in there. So I think our video came up just there. So yeah, we've got a video here, and we can click on that, and then we can click add. And that will be a video which the students can view on how to hand in their work. And we could just, again, we've got same options over here about who it goes to, but we could just post that. And that will just be posted as a resource here for them to see here, a useful video on how to hand in their work. They'll be able to just click into that, and again, they'll just have the video there. They can make some comments on it if they get stuck or if they have any questions. So we've covered a lot of really useful stuff here, and there's just a couple more things that I want to show you, and we're now going to move into more of the settings around Google Classroom and some very useful settings which we can set. So what we're going to do is we're going to start inside a class itself, and we're going to click the cog here. So these are going to be settings which are related to this individual class that you've got just here and you're in. So these are familiar because we set these up at the start. And we can change the name, we could add a description, we can set the section, room, subject, we can change any of these different things down here. Down here we've got more general settings. So we've got settings for the class code here, whether we display it, copy it, reset it, disable it. You may want to change some of those settings, but that's up to you in there. The stream is very useful as to whether you can allow students to post, whether you can allow them to comment on posts that you have sort of created, or whether only teachers can post and comment. Now this is very useful, especially when you first set Google Classroom up. Your students might be really excited. They go into Google Classroom, they see a stream, which is kind of like a social media feed, and they realise they can comment on it, and they'll all just start talking to each other. So at least initially, you may want to set that to just teachers being able to post or comment, or maybe students being able to just comment only, especially if your plan is in the stream to ask some questions to the students. You do need to allow them to be able to comment on it so that you can get some responses back. The next one is classwork on the stream, and just what type of notifications are shown about the classwork on the stream. So if you want to just have the stream exclusively for notifications that you write and you post, then you'd want to set that to hide notifications, because then when you set classwork, that won't be posted on the stream. Equally, if you do want to have the notifications go through to the stream so that when your students go straight into the classroom and they go to the stream, they can see if there's any new work being posted, then you may want to leave it as a default of condensed notifications, which are just thin, small notifications, or you may want to have a whole load of details and attachments shown as well. Just bear in mind that if you select this, the stream will get quite full quite quickly, and any messages that you've selected, like for example where we posted a message about a Google Meet that was happening, might disappear off the bottom of the page. We've got here about showing deleted items, so whether we want to set those as visible. You probably won't want to do that. Guardian summaries is around the Guardian kind of options within Google Classroom, which are usually turned off by default, so that's probably not that relevant, but you can click here to see an example if you want to see some more information about the Guardian summaries. The next part is around Google Meet, which we set earlier. So we've got our Meet link here, which we can either copy or we can reset it. You might want to reset it if you're wanting to use a new Google Meet link for some reason. And the option here as to whether it's visible to the students. So we mentioned earlier that the Google Meet link that's on Google Classroom can only be gone into by students when there's actually a teacher present, so it is pretty secure anyway, but you may want to just set this to on and off as you set the meeting. So for example, if you've got a meeting coming up on Thursday at 3 p.m, you may want to turn this off until Thursday morning, for example, or about an hour before the meeting, and then you may want to go back in here and turn it on. For most people, they'll probably leave this on by default. Lastly, we've got the marking section here, and this is just around really the customization on your particular school. So this is whether you want there to be a overall mark calculation of no overall mark, total points, weighted by category, and I'd recommend clicking here on the Learn More to give you more information about how those are kind of set up. And some of this will be set up in collaboration with your IT department as well, because some of this will need to be set in the back end. And you can set whether you want to show an overall mark to your students as well, which you can toggle on and off, and there'll be a bit more information about that here. And lastly, you've got marks by category as well. So that's whether you want to have particular overall marks and overall grading by particular categories that you set up elsewhere. Probably a little bit more advanced for this video, but you can have a look in these sections to see if that's something that you want to do. When you're done with those settings, you just click Save, and that will save those settings for your class. I'm now going to show you similar settings, but for actual Classroom itself. And those are accessed by just clicking the lines in the top left here and going to Settings. So these are now going to be settings for Classroom itself rather than an individual class. And there's not really too much that we can set in here. It's really around our profile picture and our account settings, which will actually take us off elsewhere. It's mainly the notifications which are set down here. So notifications are really, really useful if you're a member of multiple classes, and we've particularly seen heads of year wanting to go in here and change their notifications. So let's have a look at the top level notifications. So in the most basic sense, we can turn email notifications off completely. Then we'll get absolutely nothing at all on our email. We'll have to go into Google Classroom to see anything that's going on. But let's turn them back on and look at the individual settings that we can set here. So we've got comments. So this will basically say you'll get an email notification when there's a comment on your post, a comment that you mention on, and a private comment on particular work. These are all on by default. You can change any of those and turn them off. Now we've got notifications around classes. So you'll get notifications of late submissions, resubmissions, invitations to co-teach classes, and scheduled post publications or failed publications, which is quite useful as well. So that's kind of like a confirmation of your posts. So again, you may want to leave these on by default. The next section is class notifications, and this is particularly useful for heads of year, because if you're a member of multiple classes, you may want to be a member of those classes to be able to post work to them or go in and check on them, but you may not actually want to get all of the notifications about those classes. So you could just turn those off, and then you won't get bombarded with emails and notifications about those classes, but you'll still be able to access them and change things in there. So that's about it for the settings and for everything in the classes. We have a couple of other videos in this series which is around creating classes, archiving classes, creating and removing people. Some of that we've covered here, but you can check that video out, which is in the top right corner now if you want to know some more details about that. And don't forget to have a look at some of the other videos in this series which will show you some more information around students handing in work, how to create Google Docs and what Google Docs looks like, forms, sheets, all of those other aspects of Google Classroom. But I hope that this gives you a really good overview of Google Classroom, what you can use it for, and how it's going to be really powerful for you as a teacher to be able to schedule those assignments, control your class flow, and to be able to digitally assign and view work.
Finally, as always, thank you for watching. That concludes this video tutorial. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for more videos you'd like to see, let us know. If you liked this video, please consider leaving us a like and subscribing to our channel for all the latest updates.